All right, my friends, we're going to take a look at the charts here today. Hold on, let me just get this for the right day. Here we go. So, we have a new moon in Gemini coming in tomorrow, and this is going to be coming over the sun here. And, this is going to be illuminating our subconscious, especially as it's a new moon. It's going to be kind of like this fresh new start. We're coming in to this Gemini energy with Mercury on top of Venus retrograde, like all these answers and everything that we've kind of been confused about is starting to come to fruition. We're starting to actually understand things on a conceptual level, on an intellectual level. Things aren't so much in the intuition and the, sort of beliefs that we have under things understood in our lives. We're sort of having it at a more concise and clear, rational level where we can understand it properly. So, this is definitely going to be a really good aspect for today, starting into new energies, especially with Gemini and all of this stuff that's coming in. And we're leaving all of this Taurus energy that kind of felt like it's, we're working on stuff, we're feeling grounded, we're feeling we're getting stuff together, but you have like Uranus here making things a little bit chaotic and uncertain throughout all of this. And you had all this stuff happening before Mercury went into Gemini. Mercury was in Taurus, so a lot of aspects there. You still have Venus squaring Neptune, so there is that element. Neptune's over here, sorry. So you still have that element of being confused or deluded going on in the world. There's definitely a lot of confusion when it relates to like romance and partnerships. There's kind of like a weird, I wouldn't say a disconnect, but there is some kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication, or like you feel like your intuition, your deeper emotions are telling you a different story than what's actually happening. And I think with this Mercury coming over Venus, it's going to start clearing things up. And, you do have the moon and sun trining over Saturn. So definitely things are feeling more practical, put together. But again, this is on a retrograde Saturn. So, and this is kind of stopped at this degree here. So this is kind of feeling like feeling that internally, feeling like the structure is put in place, but you're kind of stuck. Like you feel like you have a plan to commit to something, but you feel like you can't really actualize it now, but you know what it is, you know what to do and where to start building, but you kind of feel like you have to wait some time, you have to wait for the right moment. This is definitely an instance where I see proper timing is very crucial, especially with all this Gemini. You want to figure out the truth, figure out the right equation of how to handle things, and you have Saturn in Aquarius, so this is the long vision, the long future, what you want to build and moving towards the future in that regard. So it's definitely putting things together in that way, and this is going to be a trine that isn't going to happen in Aquarius for quite some time. We're only going to have a trine to Saturn in Virgo when the sun's there, which is going to be a completely different kind of energy. That's going to be a lot more immediate, a lot more, especially if Saturn, I think is still being retrograde by that point, or it might be going direct. So this is going to be a completely different switch into a more, I guess I would say chaotic in a little bit of a sense, but more of a sense of like feeling like things are going back to the old way and going back to what things were like before 2020. In the more negative aspects, it might feel a lot more restricted in certain aspects. It feels like we can't move, but that's coming up in the future. And but having that clarity on that, I think, is going to be important. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's going to be a big day. Definitely keep an eye out for these elements. And if we look at the charts here, which I forgot to do, as you can see, it barely went over this resistance point here, which, you can kind of be a little bit more freeform. I think a lot of people are very strict when it comes to technical analysis. It's like it has to be this level. The real purpose of having those strict guidelines and principles is so that you can follow a rule book and you just stick to those principles, so that way you can manage higher percentages when you win in the stock market. So it doesn't necessarily mean that those restrictions you're putting on yourself are right. It's just a guideline principle to act within. And I think it's important not necessarily bend them, but to understand that they are not the law. It's not a physical construct that's geared towards everything. But again, those are just basic principles of technical analysis. So again, we're going to see where this plays out. It looks like the market's going to be going down again. There is a lot of false hope, which is why things keep going up and down here. And people need to be a little bit more realistic about what's going on in the world and how, we've basically shifted everything in terms of how we communicate, how we do business, how we travel, how we do everything, because of all this COVID lockdown stuff, that, it's hard to just go back to these levels, which were already ridiculously overpriced. We were already due for a correction, and this COVID-19 just like created an even worse correction. And this is going to be something to really think about, something that's very pertinent in these times, that it going down just this amount by 400 points is kind of nothing. Like, if you think about the growth we've had just in like 1 year, if we just zoom out here for a sec, just let it load. I don't know why it's not loading. Here we go. So from 2017, look how much it's risen. It's risen, about 1,400 points here to the peak. Now it's at, 3,000. It's just kind of like, from this point, it looks pretty bad, but this is only 3 years. If you think about where things were in like 2008, it's a completely different look. We're going to just go by month here because it's easier. I don't know why this is so slow. Here we go. So yeah, like, you look from 2009 upwards and see how much it's grown in just 10 years. I mean, we're talking about the S&P at its lowest in 2008 went down to 800 points, and look what this is. It's like half of this right now. It's nothing. And what's happening in the world and how much it's changing, especially where it's at right now. I mean, if you want to compare it, like, if you think about right here, right around 2007, end of 2007, which was when the credit crisis happened, look how much it dropped. It barely dropped at all. And this was like a bear market, what people thought of as. And then, you have your, the stock going back up in this moment here, thinking everything's okay. And then look how fucking far back down it goes, right? This is not something to just ignore here. Like, look at, like, that's insane. Like, and look how big that comeback is, and and you can compare the volume. The volume for the buyback is not as high as the sell-off points. So this is definitely important to realize and pay attention to, because the same thing happened here. The volume was higher during the sell-off, and then the buyback was pretty much lower than that until we got to around here when we hit a bottom at the end of 2009. So things, we got to be prepared for a much bigger downfall here, which is why you should be a lot safer with your money. Don't get overly optimistic about things. It's a dangerous time, and we don't really know where COVID's going in this time. So I'm just going to do a quick tarot read here for you. Okay. So, This is definitely an interesting card. First card we got is the Four of Cups reversed. So definitely, taking a look back and what we have in our lives and what we've been given, and probably, reconfiguring our perspective of those things. I think this is a lot to do with ourselves and what we've already accomplished in our lives and what kind of goals we want to set moving forward, utilizing the stuff we are already good at, the gifts that we've already been given, and not really thinking that you need to learn something new, so to speak, or learn a new skill. Just keep developing and accepting the gifts you already do have. But then you have the Devil card upright, so there's definitely going to be an aspect of temptation towards something, because you do have the Five of Pentacles reversed here. So this is definitely like a mindset kind of thing that's happening, where you feel like we don't really deserve wealth, or we feel like there's no hope left in the world. This is definitely like a demon kind of energy that's coming on, and making us feel like there's this illusory aspect coming in that isn't to our benefit. And I think that's something that's we should pay attention to as being an illusion. This is definitely coming in line with this Neptune square Venus, which is squaring exactly Mercury too tomorrow. Don't forget that even though Mercury is sort of conjuncting Venus, giving it strength, it's still getting attacked by this, Neptune here. So definitely I think this is a time where there is a duality in things in terms of having clarity on certain aspects, but then being tempted to go back into thinking, negative patterns. This is also where we have the South Node in Sagittarius, which is definitely making us have false beliefs and, being overconfident in things and not really being in line with the truth and understanding things rationally, getting too caught up in your belief system and, not looking at the smaller details. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Peace.